everybody, welcome back to the Star Spangled Beauty Ladder Quilt Along. This week, May 12th, we're going to work on the Vase Flowers, the Patriotic Home Roof, and the Patriotic Home. The Patriotic Home uses the vinyl which comes in the embellishment kit. It's the clear vinyl. This is what the embellishment kit looks like. I already took the denim out to do the heart blocks. I have not cut the vinyl yet, so I will go ahead and do that on camera, and it'll be our first time stitching with vinyl. I'll detail that out for you. Let's get started with these 3 blocks. Grab your instructions, and on page 9 you'll find the cutting diagram for the clear vinyl. I've made some adjustments to the camera. Hopefully everything will be better. We're going to cut this together. If you're just joining in the quilt along, there's links in the description box below where you can download the schedule. And this is a great week to start because we've only done a few blocks and this week's pretty straightforward. Great week to catch up. I've got my rotating cutting mat. I think the vinyl shows up a little bit better on camera. Go ahead and grab your instructions, and you always want to cut according to the instructions. You can see there'll be a little bit left, but if you don't cut everything out of the right spot, you may run out of your vinyl. I do have this facing this direction because I'm standing over here. I have a Creative Grids ruler, and this needs to be 6.5 by 5. Here's my 5, and it has half marks. Let me bring that back up and show you. See the half marks? And because it starts from 0 on this end, I can read it this way and find my 6.5 and then find my 5 really easy. Let me move this. It's a little hard to see on camera. I'll do my best. I'm going to line it up with a spot on my cutting mat. There's my 5. So the 5 is going to go there, and then I need 6.5. I'm going to line that up too. What I'm doing is I'm matching the edges with these lines on the cutting mat to help me place my ruler. So there's the 5 and my 6.5 down here. I'm going to double check. I'm 5 inches over, 6.5 this way. I'm just going to actually feel it and make sure my ruler's lined up correctly. It is a little bit hard to see. We're going to cut this piece really carefully. It cuts very easy. I'm going to go right to the top there. And before I move my ruler, I can tell I didn't completely cut through. So get that corner there. There we go. I'm going to set, it's stuck to the back of the ruler. I'm going to set this piece aside. Going up this area, you need a 4x4. 4, and then the 4 will be between here, between the 3.5 and 4.5 is a 4. I'm going to line it up again along a couple of these lines. If you hear some noises in the background, it's laundry day, and the canary is singing as well. It's always laundry day. 4 by 4. It's going to leave a little tiny sliver at the top. You won't need all of these pieces today. I'm going to set aside the pieces that I'm not using and put them back with the embellishment kit. Now I need a 3.5 by 5.5. You can turn the ruler around so you have the half marks on this side facing towards you. I'm going to go ahead and line it up on these lines again so I can see it with my ruler. I want 3.5 on that line. And 5.5. This is only 1, 2, 3, 4. This is only 5, so it needs to go up a little higher. And you'll have a tiny strip over here, which is what I have. I'm at 3.5. I can feel it right there. I can feel it right here. That's my 5.5. The last piece today is a 3x3 square. It does show on the diagram cutting it right here, but since I know this is the last piece and I've got a nice corner here, I'm going to flip it. I don't need anything else but the 3x3 square. I'm going to use a smaller ruler for this. This is a 5-inch square Creative Grids ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and line this up, and I need a 3x3, and that's the one we're going to use today. going to put this with my Patriotic Home fabric, and we'll need that today. The rest of these pieces we'll need later on for the quilt. I'm going to keep them together, and I'm going to put them back in the bag with the embellishment kit. That way I know exactly where everything is. If you ever make a mistake cutting your vinyl, there are a couple things you can use if you don't have extra vinyl on hand. By Annie makes a vinyl product. I have this because I make project bags. This is really easy to work with. This will work for the vinyl for embroidery projects. This bag is a Kimberbell bag from their punch needle kits. It's a little bit thicker, but if you're in a pinch and you really need some vinyl, you could sacrifice one of your punch needle bags. Make sure you cut your project batting. Go to the last step of each block, look at the trimming instructions. This tells you that we're going to trim to 4.5 by 4.5. This is the Vase Flowers. I cut my project batting 5.5 by 5.5. It's enough to tack it down and then to pull it up and trim it off before you do that background quilting. A quick note for all these blocks, make sure you check to see which ones need the fusible backing. For the Vase Flowers, you need fusible backing on the wrong side of the background and the flowers fabric. For the Patriotic Home Roof, you need fusible backing on the wrong side of all of your fabrics. And on the Patriotic Home, you need fusible backing again on the wrong side of all of the fabrics. Quick note on these instructions. It has the roof placement line in the color they call raspberry, which is fine because it's dark blue and eventually you're going to go over it with a satin stitch. I think I'm going to go ahead and put one of the blue colors down instead. The roof satin outline is done further down the page in this color they call cobalt, so I'm going to put that on my machine for anything having to do with the roof. And then I wanted to show also for the chimney, we're using that color, the raspberry color, and I had pulled this in my first video for the quilt along. I showed how I picked my colors. I found that I really don't like the way this looks next to this fabric. I think it comes out too pink, so I pulled a red to use instead. So there will be parts in the quilt where it might call for raspberry and I might use raspberry, or I might use red depending on what's going on. We're up to the Patriotic Home. Let's do this one together. I'll start by showing you how to load files in case you haven't seen that before. I'm stitching on a baby lock meridian. My files are on USB. I'm going to hit the button for USB, find my Star Spangled Beauty, and I need a background. Let's see which one we need. KDQ 409 stars 4x6 horizontal. Here's KDQ 409, 4x6 horizontal. You'll see there's two pictures for 4x6. If you look in the instructions, what I want is everything going in the same way in the horizontal rows. That's this one. Once I have that loaded, I hit the set button and then the add button. I have to go back to my USB, Star Spangled Beauty. Now I need an embroidery file, and I need to find the Patriotic Home right there at the bottom. It'll put that right on top once I hit the set button. And it centers it for me. Everything's ready to go. We can hit embroidery. Make sure you've hooped your light mesh cutaway stabilizer, hand tightened and tightened with a screwdriver. We're going to go through all the same steps with the batting and the fabric and the applique. When I get to the vinyl, I'll stop it and we'll go through that in real time. Here we go. Once you've completed your satin stitching, you want to stop. We're going to do the vinyl. I'm going to pull this toward the camera, lint roll it. You don't want fuzz or anything to end up caught under your vinyl. Make sure it's nice and clean. That looks good. And it looks like we have a thread change too. Before we tack down the vinyl, we are changing to the navy thread. Make sure you change your thread. I'm going to do that. I have the navy thread on. Now I want to grab my vinyl. Before I tack this down, I'm going to take, it's an eyeglass cleaning cloth. If you use a Kleenex or paper towel, you get lint. Just kind of make sure you've got no fingerprints on it, no lint on it, dog hair. Get a good look at it and make sure it's clean, and then you're going to tape it down. My vinyl looks nice and clean. I'm going to go ahead and cover my windows with it, and then I'm going to get some tape and tape it just like in the instructions across the top and across the bottom. I've got my two pieces of tape. Get that thread out of the way. I don't want to tape my thread and mess up my machine before it starts. Make sure it's taped down nice and secure. I have everything taped down. If you look in your instructions, I'm on page 26. It has you using that navy thread, stitching the vinyl tack down line and the detail. Once that's done, you take off your tape. It says trim as desired. This is a raw edge applique. Do you have to use the vinyl? No. If you didn't buy the embellishment kit and you don't want to use the vinyl, you don't have to use the vinyl. It's a cute little extra, and I have the embellishment kit to go with this, so I'm going to put down the vinyl. The vinyl's all tacked down, the detail is done. I'm going to use my snips for this. I'm going to trim around the windows and between the windows. Now the tack down line is right here in the middle of the satin stitch. It's up to you if you want to trim right next to that or you want to trim by your satin stitch. Take your time, see what you like. You can always trim further out and have a look at it and then trim closer in if you don't like the way it looks. I'm sitting here trimming this on my lap. It's really easy to fold this in. It kind of has a natural stopping point, and then trim it right where it feels like it needs to be trimmed. You don't even have to get really up close to it. It's clear. Again, you can kind of fold it. You can even press it if you want. You can feel where it wants to fold and then go ahead and trim. I've trimmed all the way around. The hardest part is going to be to trim here in the center. What I usually like to do for something like that is either get close to one side and then I'll pull it and do the other, or go right down the middle and then do both. This is pretty tight. I'm going to go ahead and get close to this side if I can. I can. You can sort of feel it's got a little bit of give. I'm just going just a little bit at a time. I don't want to trim those stitches. Be real careful. And then I can always go back and trim closer if I need to, which I think I will have to do right there. Fold this one, trim this one. And I'm going to put my readers on and get a good look at this and see if I trimmed it right. That looks pretty good. I went around and I cleaned up with this and just took my time, made sure I like the way it looks. You can always trim more, but if you cut too much, then you're kind of stuck with what you get. So take your time with your trimming. Before you go to the next step, which is the house satin outline, you are going to have a thread change. So change your thread, do the house satin outline, and the little doorknob detail will stitch out. And then you'll have another thread change and stitch the door satin outline and the house decorative trim fill. That's going to be this little roof line that's in the picture. And then after that, we'll be back at the cutting table. We'll trim our blocks. We'll see if our house matches up to the roof, and we'll see if our vase flowers from this week match up with our vase from last week. We are back at the cutting table. Let's trim our blocks. We're going to start with the vase flowers. This trims to 4.5 inches squared. I'm using the orange pop rulers and my rotating cutting mat. All information will be linked in the description box below the video. If you stitched your trim line in a dark thread, it's easier to see. You can go ahead and line those up top and bottom, and then you have your tack down lines here on the outside, and you can use those to help center your block. Make sure it's centered. You have it where you want it so you can cut it. Make sure it's straight. Remember, this block is going to match up with the vase, hopefully. It's your rotary cutter. Make sure to push it all the way to the side of the ruler, inside that groove, and we're going to go around and trim. I brought my vase block over. Let's see if they match. They're going to come together like this in the quilt. Oh, it looks good. I'll hold it up closer to the camera. Nice. It looks like all of the embroidery background quilting lines are going to line up. And remember, you've got a little seam allowance in there. Let me go ahead and pick this up. It looks pretty good when these are stitched together. Again, there's seam allowance in here. Everything should line up just fine. These will be coming out of the top of the vase. The Patriotic Home Roof is also 4.5 inches squared. We'll cut that one just like we did the flowers. Go ahead and get your rulers, center them up, and then trim your block. That looks nice and even. I'm going to set this aside and we're going to trim our Patriotic Home, and then we'll put the two together and see how they look for lining up. The Patriotic Home uses one of the rectangle orange pop rulers. This one gets trimmed to 4.5 by 6.5. And again, if you're not using the orange pop rulers, I did show in a previous video how to cut using a regular ruler. You basically center it and look through the ruler, and you can mark it if you need to and trim it up that way. These are just more convenient, and I happen to have them, so I'm using them. Make sure your block is nice and centered, and then go ahead and trim up your block. Let's grab our home and our roof. Oh, that's going to look just fine. Let me bring that up a little closer to the camera for you. Again, don't forget you're going to be sewing these together. This is your seam allowance, so when they're stitched together, the roof will sit right on top of this detail. And isn't that neat detail? I thought this was a ribbon or something, but it's just stitched that way. It's really neat looking. That looks good. There's the vinyl windows. Thank you so much for joining me for this week for the Star Spangled Beauty Ladder Quilt Quilt Along. We did our home, the roof, and the vase petals this week. I'll be back the week of May 19th. We're going to do applique frame 1, applique frame 2, and the summer cherries. As always, if you've got questions, please put them in the comments box below the video. I appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, share, and let's keep working on our Star Spangled Beauty Ladder Quilt. See you next time, everybody.